This morning I was actually sitting and having breakfast with my wife, and I told her that I have this keynote to deliver, and if she had any tips for me. And she said, you know what, I must tell you, Abhiraj, don't try to sound too intellectual, don't try to be too witty, don't try to be too funny, just be yourself. So on that note, slightly lighter note, let me actually get started with my presentation. The presentation is on this topic called full stack technology marketplaces. It's a heavy duty topic, lots of buzzwords there, but I'll try to keep things as simple and straightforward as possible. Before I start with the presentation, let me actually share with you the story of a beautician called Hasmita. I met Hasmita about 2 years back. Hasmita was a 22-year-old beautician who had come to our UrbanClap office. She had come to know of the company through one of her friends. And she came to me and she said, "Sir, I have a huge loan on my head that my father, who recently passed away, has left behind for the family. And I'm working at this local salon and I make about 9,000 rupees per month. And one of my friends told me that my life could change if I were to join this new age company. But I have no idea what you do, and I just showed up here." This story actually very deeply touched me. I'll come back to how Hasmita joined UrbanClap and what followed. But this story deeply touched me. And now having been building this company for the last 5 years, it made me realize one of the core essence or one of the core problems that our country faces. And this is not just true for the home services sector in which UrbanClap operates, but pretty much across different sectors. And that problem is summarized on this slide. It is that in India, in most sectors that you see, the actual producers of goods and services, the individuals who might be working hard to create core value, this could be a farmer, this could be a service professional like Hasmita, and so on and so forth, get a very, very small fraction of the end value or the end price that the consumer is paying. And in the middle, you have this massive, gigantic layer of middlemen who are part of the value chain, except that in the value chain, they are not adding any value. They are only eating away into margins. And this tends to happen because we're an emerging market. Most of our industries are young and nascent. They're only a few decades old, and most of them have not been imagined and built bottom up from first principles. Most of them have been built sporadically along the way with entities joining in and taking a share of their cut. Home services as a sector was no different. When we started UrbanClap, the entire market was fraught with middlemen. It continues to be fraught with middlemen. Remember the last time you tried to call an AC technician or a plumber, and invariably the number that you would call, the guy on the other side of the phone would say, "हाँ साहब, मैं किसी को भेजता हूँ." He would never say, "हाँ मैं खुद आता हूँ." And you would imagine that this person is a small businessman who has a few technicians working for him, and he will now dispatch one of his technicians. But the truth of the matter is that that is not the case. He is only a middleman or an aggregator who has built a network of service professionals, what we call ठेकेदार्स. And he will essentially figure out one who's vacant, one who's available, send that person to your home, and in the process pocket 60 to 70% of everything you pay. The service professional will go back and pay this ठेकेदार his cut. That's how this country operates. When I was growing up in Bombay, being a beautician used to be, and I grew up in the naval colony in Colaba, I remember a lot of naval officers' wives used to aspire to be beauticians. Being a beautician used to be a profession of pride. You could earn about 10,000 rupees a month, which was a big deal back in the 90s when I was growing up. Cut to 20 years later, beauticians are still making 10,000 rupees a month. Why? Because bulk of the margins are eaten away by the owners of the salon chains. So while your salon chain owners are driving Jaguars and Mercedes, the beautician is struggling to pay off her loan. This is the problem of India. And this is the first theme that I want to talk about and that I want all of us to reflect upon, which is across sectors, the end producers of goods and services are getting a very small fraction. And in any industry that you see where this core behavior is true, where you can see that the end producers of goods and services are getting a small fraction, I believe that industry is ripe for disruption and ripe for disruption through technology. Now, how do we do that at UrbanClap? It's easy to say that let's bring these service professionals onto the marketplace, and now they will be connected with consumers, and life will be good. The reality is that you have to actually work very, very hard to transform these individual service professionals into organized service professionals who can deliver a high quality service. When you meet Hashmita for the first time, you realize she doesn't even have a bank account. So you have to open the first bank account for her and get her banked. Then you realize that in order to work as a home service professional, she needs to buy a kit which is worth 35,000 rupees. But her net savings are only about 8 to 10,000 rupees because she's been making 9,000 rupees as a salon professional and has a hand-to-mouth existence. So now that she's banked, you figure out a way to get her a loan. So you reach out to your banking partners or NBFC partners to get her a white label loan so that she can buy that starter kit. You realize she doesn't have any insurance of any kind. She has no health insurance, she has no accidental insurance, no life insurance. So you get her a basic insurance so that in the event that she falls sick, all her savings are not wiped out. Then you realize that she's not fully trained. The parlor kept her as a salon professional and only taught her how to do manicure, pedicure and facial. She doesn't know all the services. So you put her through a standardized training program to train her on all the core skill sets. Then you give her an app which tells her how to track all her orders, how to collect payments, etc., etc. Somewhere along the way, the government comes in and says, now you have to pay taxes on her behalf. So you start paying goods and service taxes on behalf of Hashmita. And eventually you realize that even the products and the cosmetics that Hashmita is using is a very critical part of the service delivery experience, but she doesn't have access to genuine products and cosmetics. So you get into that supply chain and you actually start to procure all of these products and cosmetics in bulk, eventually actually starting to do contract manufacturing and white labeling of these cosmetics. So hardly a technology marketplace, hardly a website which has service partners registered and customers buying. This is what I call full stack technology marketplaces. Full stack technology marketplaces on the surface really look like just websites and apps, but that's only the tip of the iceberg that the consumer is exposed to. Below the surface is a gigantic machinery at work which is working through with your supply ecosystem to enhance them, to enhance their quality, because the reality is that the supply ecosystem in an emerging market economy is not very well enhanced. And once you're able to do that, you're able to bring these service professionals, you'll be able to bring these end producers of goods and services direct access to the market. And that means that their earnings will see a significant step jump. The same Hashmita today is making consistently 80,000 rupees per month. She recently bought a car and she's paid off the entire loan, and now her new aspiration is to buy a house in Gurgaon. This isn't a standalone story. It is not uncommon to find UrbanClap beauticians driving in their own cars to customers' home. A lot of our AC technicians send their kids today to DPS Arkepuram, and so on and so forth. And this is possible because we've been able to go deep in our partnership with these service professionals, enhance their quality and open access to the end markets for them.